Russell has some news, some midsummer news, some July 4th weekend numbers from the Disney theme parks. So do you want to bring that up here?
Yeah, little Disney update, because the one thing they had going for them was the parks. They're losing, I think, $1 billion a month on Disney Plus. It's either a month or a quarter. I think they're losing $1 billion a month on Disney Plus. Their movies are just bombing one after the other. They're losing hundreds of millions of dollars on Quantumania, on Elementals. Now Indiana Jones is going to be it looks like one of the biggest flops in history. Little Mermaid, because of the international box office, I think they broke even or maybe made a slight profit. So they're getting killed. I mean, they're just bleeding money. The one bright spot was the theme parks, which I suspected eventually were going to feel the impact. If the audience, if your brand is becoming toxic that way, how can it not eventually affect your flagship theme parks? It looks like that's happening now. So Disney World had the slowest 4th of July in a decade and the lowest waits all year. It was hot and crowds were low this 4th of July at Walt Disney World. Normally a magnet for locals and out-of-state and international tourists alike, the 4th of July at Disney World wasn't the draw that it was in years past, as the trend of a slow summer continues. As you can see in the graph below from thrillldata.com, 2023 was the slowest July 4th in the past 10 years at Walt Disney World by average wait time across all 4 Disney World theme parks. Walt Disney World attractions averaged a 24-minute wait on the 4th of July. That makes it the slowest day of 2023, something that might be considered an impossibility in years past. So you can see in this graph, they've just been trending down. And if you look overall,
so that black line, just so everybody knows, here, scroll back up. That thick black line is this year.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And then down here, this is year over year performance. And you can see the parks are just trending down overall. That was inevitable. There was another article where they interviewed people at the park saying Disney wasn't patriotic enough. They should have, they wanted more rah, rah, I'm proud to be an American. They wanted that, and, all they got was a fireworks show. So this is part of the problem that the brand is having overall, I think. Who has more kids? Who has more kids? Conservative people in Tennessee or liberals in the Northeast? Who has more kids? They have their only children that they helicopter parent. And then these people out in Arkansas got 7 kids. They got playing with snakes out in the land they got out back. Okay?
$100 a pop, baby, plus the food and the drink. I mean, forget it, man. They make bank off. You get those families in there.
Well, there's that too. They made it really expensive. Although now they're offering deals, and it's not bringing people back because they've done to a lesser extent. I believe Disney has created negative associations with its brand. It's not to the extent of Bud Light. Like Bud Light is done. Like they've stigmatized their brand to the point they'll never recover. Disney, though, with repeatedly projecting that they are not only not willing to try to serve more conservative family audiences, but that they're openly hostile to those audiences. I mean, they've made that very clear. Well, what did you think was going to happen? They were going to keep bringing their families to Disney World? Of course not. You've given it a certain Bud Light stigma in that crowd. I mean, you worked very hard to do it. It didn't happen overnight. It happened over years, but now I think this is a reflection of that.
Well, what do they call Disney World? They call it the happiest place in the world, right? And part of that is the fact that it is just this apolitical place,
That's
right?
what it was. Yes.
And not only that, but it's this kind of retro place, right? There's something very analog about it. Like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride is cool.
Right.
It's like that ride. I don't know when it was built, but you look like you're in the 70s when you're down there, right? Like it's not super high tech. Some of the rides are. They add new stuff, but there's this element of like nostalgia, right, and sort of reverence for tradition that's there and things like that. And not only is a lot of that kind of disappearing with the times, but there's just not a lot of good new contents to sort of keep updating the brands, in a way that's going to keep bringing people in. When was the last iconic Disney movie that came out? Like the last really good one that came out was like Inside Out was a fantastically good movie. But even it's hard to brand that as a ride. I mean, you probably could, but like when are we like there are none of these like Toy Story type just classic films coming out.
Probably the last new original, not a reboot kind of IP they came up with that became kind of a new classic was probably Frozen.
Yeah, it's true. That
was probably the last one.
That was a sensation, right? Because of the song and everything. Yes, absolutely. Right. In fact, yes, you are right. That was the last one. Inside Out, though, you would love. You would absolutely love it. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, because
you should watch it. Because you're a bit of a curmudgeon with the Disney stuff lately. It'd be good for you to watch a good Disney movie.
I'm not a curmudgeon with it. I feel like it reflects broader trends. It's easier to examine it through Disney. We said on Sunday we'll get into this. Like, Disney is being sued for underpaying its female employees, and now that's turning into a class action lawsuit. It's going from like 150 million to like a $300 million lawsuit against them.
It's a terrible labor situation. Like even at the parks, like I know a couple of tour guides who used to work at the parks. They used to live down there. And they were saying one of the reasons they left is that there's no room for growth within the company. Like they'll let you work at the parks for a few years and then they'll cycle you out. Like you can't really climb a ladder there.
Right.
It's not labor friendly at all. Because
they've always been known for that.
No, they've always been. Because I was thinking when I went to the parks last, it was like 6 or 7 years ago. I went out to LA, saw my uncle, and we took my. She's not my niece, she's my cousin, but she's young enough to be my niece. I'm thinking, man, like if this is your thing, like the parks are not really my thing. I don't mind them, but if this is your thing, what a great place to work. Like what a great place to just come every day for your whole life. But you can't. They cycle employees out. They make it very, very difficult.
They don't want
to actually make a living just working with Disney at those parks. Yeah.
No, Disney is really, if you look at what they do, they don't give a fuck about their employees, and all of the cultural signaling they're doing goes right out the window when they're marketing films overseas. They'll put in LGBTQ content. They'll cut it out for certain markets. They'll cover up black characters on their posters for certain markets. So they're not at all what they present themselves as. All of this is about ESG score. Disney having a high ESG score is like Exxon having a high ESG score, which it does, right? As long as you give the right signaling, that's the problem with ESG. If it were really what it purports to be, would it do some good? Maybe. We can debate that. But what it is in operation is what rich people would want it to be. All signaling, no substance.
Right.
The Vanguard, BlackRock, they don't actually want an underlying change in the substance of how corporations have to operate. They want signaling that they can say to their investors, yes, we supported this green initiative while we're drilling for oil out back.
Please clap.